He takes out a knife, you take out a gun. That's the Chicago way. This was a bit of a weird week. Chicago is a weird track. Like, I'm not quite sure how to completely explain it, but we're gonna do our darndest to try. Anyhow, our iRating really jumped up this week. Kind of back to where I think we normally would be. Our IR went from 1177 back up to 1519. So yeah, we're kind of back into where we had been in the past. Our safety rating came back up from an A271 to an A3.24. So that's back to kind of where it normally levels out at. But yeah, this is a heck of a track. Chicago had been described to me as a bad version of Long Beach. It's a street track, and I'm not the biggest fan of those because the walls are scary and you have to get on some of these street tracks really close to the walls in order to get the best times, and Long Beach is like that. I think at other street tracks like Montreal or Bathurst, you don't have to you're not constantly close to the walls, whereas with Long Beach and Chicago here, you have to be constantly close to the walls. It's a little disconcerting. We got our times down from at the beginning a 129.957. We got that down to a best practice time of 126.695, and in a race a 126.240. Now those good times were in like pretty optimal track conditions. I think the track temp was around 80 Fahrenheit, whatever that is Celsius wise, I'm not quite sure. And then most of the races were around like 90 or high 90s, around 100-degree track temps, so not quite as much grip in most of the races. And even like with those cooler track temps, I wasn't able to really keep those crazy. They weren't super fast. Like the fast people were doing 24s. I was more happy when I was getting consistent 27s on the track. Most of our iRating that we got was through survival, just not crashing ourselves out. Although, and for most of the week I was able to do that. The fields were pretty small. It's not a very popular track. I'll talk about that more in a second. And as such, the races, we only had one race ever that split. All of them were single split races, which I'm kind of used to from when we did the TCR. You've got the crazy fast, it's basically two races going on at the same time. The one with the crazy fast people, and then the rest of us. So it's interesting, but yeah, it's just by surviving, it's a crashy track because of all the walls that we talked about. And as such, if you can make it around without taking yourself out, you can do all right, which is what we did. Most of our races were kind of in no man's land. There was a stretch towards the end of the week where, like on the last 2 days, I think I had a stretch of like 4 or 5 races in a row that I did not really finish. At points, I would try, and just to mitigate the iRating and safety rating hit that we would take if we got taken out right at the beginning of the race, I went in, did my like 2-3 minutes of required repairs, and then would go out and do a lap with a big 30-second gap behind me. The other car would come on up behind and park it back in the pits, wait for our gap again, go back out, do a lap or two, and just kind of keeping a big empty spot so I'm not being dangerous to anybody else, but also unlapping myself from all the other cars that had been knocked out. So there was a race where we had gotten down to the place where we would have lost like 70 iRating, and by doing that we got it down to only losing like 7. It didn't work out 100% of the time, but we mitigated some damage that way. Whether or not that's a good thing to do, or I don't really know. It's what we did, and it worked for us. What I will say about the Chicago track, it's a newer track. that NASCAR commissioned iRacing to make to try out for a street circuit. It had been told to me in a way that this is just the worst track ever. It's like Long Beach was not my favorite track at the time, and then everybody's saying, oh, it's a worse version of Long Beach. So my expectations were on the floor. They were so low, you'd need to play a few games of Dig Dug to get to my expectations. Now, driving it with those expectations in mind, I'm like, it's not so bad. So, driving it, it's not so bad. It's hard to overtake on. There's not many spots to overtake, but that's, I think, a lot of street courses. A lot of courses for me, anyway. So, that wasn't such a big deal, and it didn't end up being such a big deal because, like I said, we spent most of our races in no man's land. There are a few sections of it, well, there is a section of it that I really like. Towards the back of the track, there's a couple of corners that you can take where there's a big long left-hander, so like the corner setting up to this big long left-hander, and then the following corner. It's just super rewarding when you get it right. It's a little scary to get it right, but it is super rewarding when you do. And I think a lot of the corners that are feel super rewarding to get right are those corners that are kind of scary. Anyhow, doing our Porsche Cup races in Division 5, we placed in the fixed series 21st for the week, which is pretty good for us, and overall that puts us in 13th place. Now, with the participation being what it was, I'm guessing that this is going to be a bye week for a lot of people, and I think that's why we jumped up so high in the position. So that'll drop off in both this series and the open one once we get towards the end of the season and the bye weeks start coming off for people. It is what it is, but it makes me feel good right now, so I'll go with it. In the open series, we placed 10th for the week, which, wow, I'm pretty happy with that. And overall, that puts us in 11th place for the Division 5 Porsche Cup Open Series. I'm pretty happy with that. Like I was saying, Chicago was an interesting week. At times, it was super frustrating with people crashing all over the places. We had one race where like there was a giant pile up right at the beginning of the race. Like you see, I'll show it to you here because that's how editing works. So yeah, we just had to kind of park it and wait for that wreck to clear up. That race, I think, went okay for the rest of it. I'm not quite sure. They all are kind of blending together in my mind. We did get a few podiums this week, so I'm happy with that. No wins, but hey, you can only do so much, right? And if anything, this is kind of showing me that on the tracks where survival is the name of the game, I can do okay as long as I don't get caught up in the wrecks. That's a lesson, I think. Maybe. We'll see. Next week is going to take us to Road America. I don't know how this one's going to go. I don't, like, we did 1 week of it in the GT3 cars, and I don't remember being particularly strong there. I don't remember being super bad at it, but I also am going to take some time to get reacclimated to it, I think. I don't think I'm going to be doing super good at it right away like I was at the Roval, or I usually am at like Summit Point or Lime Rock or some of those tracks that I know better. But it's not completely unfamiliar, so I just have to kind of remember all the braking points and that kind of stuff. And then with the experience in the car, should be all right, I think. Maybe. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and the challenge, as always, like relearning these tracks, usually goes a little bit quicker, so optimism. Anyway, If you like the video, hit the subscribe button. It really helps out. Thumbs up if you liked the video. Thumbs down if you didn't. And then head on over to twitch.tv and hit the follow button so you can be informed when we go live and you can hang out with us there. Anyhow, have a great day. Bye.